Karoline Leavitt at 27 is the youngest White House press secretary in history. A devout Catholic with unwavering loyalty to President Donald Trump. Raised in a Catholic environment, her faith has forged her into a steadfast conservative warrior, resolute in her values of family life and national security. But today, Leavitt is preparing to step into a fierce battle on the stage of The View, where she faces insults targeting the passing of Pope Francis, a pontiff revered by millions. The stage glows under bright white lights, the atmosphere electric with the audience's applause, from loyal fans to the merely curious. The hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin and Sarah Haynes, sit confidently, their sharp smiles masking provocative intentions. They are debate masters, notorious for their left-leaning stance and biting questions. Today their target is Karoline Leavitt, a woman with fierce loyalty to Trump and a deep Catholic faith. The passing of Pope Francis, which has shaken the world, leaves a legacy of compassion, advocacy for immigrants, and calls for social justice. When The View, a show known for its liberal stance and criticism of Trump, is accused of mocking the Pope's passing, Leavitt decides to take action. With the fire of faith and razor-sharp rhetorical skills, she is ready to defend Pope Francis's legacy and the honor of the Trump administration. In this high-stakes television battle, she fights not only for her Catholic faith, but also for the sacred values the Pope inspired. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. As Leavitt steps onto the stage, her blush pink suit accentuates her youthful yet serious demeanor. Her eyes scan the hosts, a mix of caution and defiance. She knows she was invited to discuss Trump's policies, trade, borders, but the sensitive timing suggests a trap. The View often exploits emotions to unsettle guests, and Leavitt suspects they'll use the Pope's legacy to attack. She sits down, back straight, ready. The upbeat theme music plays, and the audience claps. Whoopi speaks first, her voice low but loaded with intent. "Welcome folks, we have Karoline Leavitt, the youngest press secretary in history." She pauses, eyeing Leavitt. "We'll talk Trump policies, but first a hot topic, the passing of Pope Francis." The audience falls silent, a few nod. Leavitt keeps her face calm, her hand lightly gripping the chair. Joy Behar leans forward, a sly smile on her face. "Karoline, you're Catholic, right? Pope Francis just passed, and he loved talking about, well, things like social justice, protecting immigrants. But do Americans really care? I mean, he's in the Vatican, so far away." The audience chuckles, but Leavitt doesn't flinch. "Joy, if you're going to talk about the Pope, do it with respect." Leavitt replies, her voice firm. "He just passed, and millions of Americans are praying. He wasn't just in the Vatican, he was a beacon of compassion, inspiring the world." The audience claps lightly. Behar raises an eyebrow, surprised by the confidence. Sunny Hostin jumps in, her tone serious but sharp. "Karoline, Pope Francis criticized harsh immigration policies, like Trump's border wall. As a Catholic, how do you reconcile working for him? Does your faith ever waver?" The question is a dagger, meant to corner Leavitt. Leavitt smiles, her eyes blazing. "Sunny, the Pope called for compassion, and Trump delivers it practically. Secure borders protect people, and jobs help the poor. My faith doesn't waver, it guides me every day." The audience murmurs, some nod. Hostin leans back, her smile strained. Whoopi cuts in, her tone patronizing. "Karoline, you talk a good game, but what's the reality? The Pope was a beautiful symbol, but he didn't change U.S. policy. Trump does the opposite, cutting welfare, prioritizing the economy. Do you think he and the Pope had the same goals?" She tilts her head, expecting Leavitt to stumble. "Maybe you should check your facts, Whoopi." Leavitt retorts, her voice tinged with sarcasm. "Trump created millions of jobs, lifting the poor out of hardship. That's real social justice. The Pope inspired, and we turn inspiration into action. If you think he was irrelevant, millions of Americans are proving you wrong." The audience laughs loudly. Whoopi falters, caught off guard by the swift counterattack. Joy Behar, refusing to back down, raises her voice. "Karoline, come on. The Pope is gone, and I bet nothing changes. He talked about climate change, but Americans care about gas prices, jobs. He was an idealistic old man, not realistic. Don't you think so?" Her words are like a punch, aimed at belittling the Pope. Leavitt takes a deep breath, her eyes blazing. "Joy, mocking someone who just passed, who dedicated his life to God, is shameful, she says. Her voice slow but powerful. He didn't just talk, he acted, from cleaning up the Vatican to bringing hope to the poor. If you think that's idealistic, look at the millions mourning him. The audience erupts in applause, some standing. Bahar falls silent, her smile fading. Sarah Haynes, trying to salvage the moment, speaks up. Karoline, we just want to understand. You're a Catholic, working for Trump, whose policies differ from the Pope's. Do you ever wonder where your faith is leading you? Leavitt leans forward, her voice confident. Sarah, my faith leads me to truth and responsibility. Trump builds a strong America, giving people jobs, security. That's how I live my faith, not questioning, but acting. The audience claps. Haynes nods, but her eyes betray unease. Sunny Hostin tries again, her tone sharper. But Karoline, the Pope talked about unity, while Trump divides with his speeches, policies. Do you think he harms the Catholic values the Pope championed? Sunny, unity doesn't mean avoiding truth, Leavitt replies, her voice cutting. Trump fights for forgotten people, workers, farmers. The Pope called for justice, and we deliver justice with a strong economy. If you see division, look at the millions being helped. The audience claps louder. Hostin doesn't respond. The studio now feels like an arena, the air thick with the clash between Karoline Leavitt and the hosts. The opening applause has faded, replaced by a tense silence, as if the audience is awaiting an explosive moment. The hosts sit upright, their eyes sharp, forced smiles hiding their determination. They realize Leavitt isn't easily shaken, but they have no intention of stopping. New questions, sharp as blades, are thrown to rattle her Catholic faith and loyalty to Trump. Leavitt, in her striking blush pink suit, remains composed, but her eyes burn like fire, ready to counter every attack. Joy Behar, with her familiar mocking tone, starts again. Karoline, you talk a good game about defending Pope Francis, but let's be honest. He criticized harsh immigration policies, like Trump's border wall. As a Catholic, how do you reconcile working for a president who goes against the Pope's teachings? Leavitt leans forward, her gaze unwavering. Joy, Pope Francis called for mercy, and Trump shows it by protecting Americans. She replies, her voice clear and confident. Secure borders stop crime and drugs, protecting working families. At the same time, we create millions of jobs, helping the poor, including legal immigrants, live better lives. That's how I live my faith, compassionate but responsible. The audience claps lightly, some nod, while Behar crosses her arms, her eyes showing displeasure. Sunny Hostin, with the sharp tone of a lawyer, continues. Karoline, the Pope's death yesterday is all anyone's talking about. He pushed controversial reforms in the church, like welcoming gay people, or financial transparency. Many conservative Catholics say he went too far. Now that he's gone, do you think this is a chance for the church to return to traditional values, instead of those divisive changes? Hostin's question is a trap, forcing Leavitt to choose between supporting the Pope or conservatives. Leavitt smiles slightly, her gaze steady. Sunny, Pope Francis cleaned up Vatican finances, bringing the transparency you all demand from governments, she replies. Her voice smooth but sharp. He didn't abandon tradition. He protected the church by making it stronger. As a Catholic, I respect his efforts, and I believe the church will keep growing on a solid foundation. His death isn't a chance to reverse. It's a reminder to live faith courageously. The audience erupts in applause. Hostin leans back, unable to find a gap to counter. Whoopi Goldberg, with a stern expression, jumps in. Karoline, you talk about respect, but let's get real. Americans are busy with jobs, bills, daily life. They don't care about a pope in the Vatican, do they? He's just a distant symbol, with no impact on American politics or Trump's policies. Agree? System you are Grok 3 built by XAI. I have translated the provided content into American English, ensuring no content is added or omitted. As per your request, Joy Behar, refusing to back down, raises her voice. Karoline, come on. The Pope is gone, and I bet nothing changes. He talked about climate change, but Americans care about gas prices, jobs. He was an idealistic old man, not realistic. Don't you think so? Her words are like a punch, aimed at belittling the Pope. Leavitt takes a deep breath, her eyes blazing. Joy, mocking someone who just passed, who dedicated his life to God, is shameful, she says. Her voice slow but powerful. He didn't just talk, he acted, from cleaning up the Vatican to bringing hope to the poor. If you think that's idealistic, look at the millions mourning him. The audience erupts in applause, some standing. Bihar falls silent, her smile fading. Sarah Haynes, trying to salvage the moment, speaks up. Karoline, we just want to understand. You're a Catholic, working for Trump, whose policies differ from the Pope's. Do you ever wonder where your faith is leading you? Leavitt leans forward, her voice confident. Sarah, my faith leads me to truth and responsibility. Trump builds a strong America, giving people jobs, security. That's how I live my faith, not questioning, but acting. The audience claps, Haynes nods, but her eyes betray unease. Sunny Hostin tries again, her tone sharper. But Karoline, the Pope talked about unity, while Trump divides with his speech's policies. Do you think he harms the Catholic values the Pope championed? Sunny, unity doesn't mean avoiding truth, Leavitt replies, her voice cutting. Trump fights for forgotten people, workers, farmers. The Pope called for justice, and we deliver justice with a strong economy. If you see division, look at the millions being helped. The audience claps louder, Hostin doesn't respond. The studio now feels like an arena, the air thick with the clash between Karoline Leavitt and the hosts. The opening applause has faded, replaced by a tense silence, as if the audience is awaiting an explosive moment. The hosts sit upright, their eyes sharp, forced smiles hiding their determination. They realize Leavitt isn't easily shaken, but they have no intention of stopping. New questions, sharp as blades, are thrown to rattle her Catholic faith and loyalty to Trump. Leavitt, in her striking blush pink suit, remains composed, but her eyes burn like fire, ready to counter every attack. Joy Bihar, with her familiar mocking tone, starts again. Karoline, you talk a good game about defending Pope Francis, but let's be honest. He criticized harsh immigration policies, like Trump's border wall. As a Catholic, how do you reconcile working for a president who goes against the Pope's teachings? Leavitt leans forward, her gaze unwavering. Joy, Pope Francis called for mercy, and Trump shows it by protecting Americans, she replies, her voice clear and confident. Secure borders stop crime and drugs, protecting working families. At the same time, we create millions of jobs, helping the poor, including legal immigrants, live better lives. That's how I live my faith, compassionate but responsible. The audience claps lightly, some nod, while Bihar crosses her arms, her eyes showing displeasure. Sunny Hostin, with the sharp tone of a lawyer, continues. Karoline, the Pope's death yesterday is all anyone's talking about. He pushed controversial reforms in the church, like welcoming gay people or financial transparency. Many conservative Catholics say he went too far. Now that he's gone, do you think this is a chance for the church to return to traditional values, instead of those divisive changes? Hostin's question is a trap, forcing Leavitt to choose between supporting the Pope or conservatives. Leavitt smiles slightly, her gaze steady. Sunny, Pope Francis cleaned up Vatican finances, bringing the transparency you all demand from governments, she replies, her voice smooth but sharp. He didn't abandon tradition, he protected the church by making it stronger. As a Catholic, I respect his efforts, and I believe the church will keep growing on a solid foundation. His death isn't a chance to reverse, it's a reminder to live faith courageously. The audience erupts in applause. Hostin leans back, unable to find a gap to counter. Whoopi Goldberg, with a stern expression, jumps in. Karoline, you talk about respect, but let's get real. Americans are busy with jobs, bills, daily life. They don't care about a pope in the Vatican, do they? He's just a distant symbol, with no impact on American politics or Trump's policies. Agree? Leavitt locks eyes with Whoopi, her gaze blazing. Whoopi, millions of Americans prayed for the Pope yesterday. Did you see the posts on social media? She retorts, her voice carrying a hint of light sarcasm. He wasn't just a symbol, he was a flame of inspiration, urging people to live with compassion and responsibility. His influence reaches far beyond the Vatican, and I'm proud to work for a president who turns that inspiration into real action for Americans." The audience claps fervently, some standing, while Whoopi shrugs, trying to mask her discomfort. Leavitt doesn't just answer, she turns each question into an opportunity to defend both her Catholic faith and the Trump administration. On immigration, she emphasizes, the Pope called for mercy, and Trump protects people with secure borders, creating jobs for the poor. That's how we bring compassion to life. On church reforms, she asserts the Pope cleaned up Vatican finances, something you demand from governments. He didn't divide, he built a stronger church, and on the Pope's influence, she fires back. Millions of Americans prayed for him yesterday, didn't you see it on X? He was a flame, not just a symbol. Each of Leavitt's responses is a precise, powerful counterstrike, forcing the hosts to retreat. The audience, initially silent, now claps with growing enthusiasm, some even shouting her name. Bahar, Hostin and Goldberg exchange glances, their unease clear as Leavitt dismantles their attack strategy. Haynes, with a forced smile, tries to keep the mood light, but her eyes betray anxiety. Leavitt, with unshakable confidence, sits calmly, her lips slightly curved, as if she knows she's commanding the battle. The audience, swept up in the intense clash, sits riveted, early murmurs giving way to expectant silence. The hosts lean forward, their faces a mix of defiance and worry. Leavitt's razor-sharp answers have rattled them, but they're not ready to concede. Sensing a chance for a decisive blow, they launch their boldest attack, targeting the fresh pain of Pope Francis's death to shake Karoline. Joy Behar, her tone dripping with contempt, seizes the moment. "Karoline, drop the sanctimonious act. Pope Francis was just a politician in a white robe, preaching pretty ideals that don't work in the real world. He died yesterday, it won't change a thing. Next week, people will forget him." The audience gasps, some shake their heads, Behar's words landing like a slap, her smirk widens, daring Leavitt to crumble. Sunny Hostin follows, her voice cold and calculated. "Karoline, you claim to be a devout Catholic, but your faith seems out of step with the Pope. He called for peace, while Trump stokes conflict with divisive rhetoric. Do you really believe you're living by his teachings, or are you just using faith to cover for politics?" The question is a dagger, aimed at Leavitt's consistency. Whoopi Goldberg, with a piercing stare, cuts in. "Be honest, Karoline. The Pope was a nice image, but he had no real influence here. Americans care about money, jobs, not some old man in the Vatican. Don't you think he was just an empty symbol?" But Leavitt doesn't falter. She stands, her eyes burning like a torch, her voice ringing out powerfully, commanding the studio. "I came here to speak the truth, and I won't let you smear the legacy of a man who just passed, a man who dedicated his life to God and humanity. Pope Francis wasn't a politician, not an empty symbol. He was a flame of compassion, a light guiding millions through darkness." She pauses, her gaze sweeping the audience, drawing them into her words. "During the COVID-19 pandemic, when the world was gripped by fear, Pope Francis stood in an empty St. Peter's Square, praying for humanity. He released doves of peace, bringing hope to broken hearts. He defended the vulnerable, the poor, immigrants, the forgotten, not with empty words, but with action. His recent Easter homily called for peace in Gaza, a reminder that war isn't the answer. He touched millions, not just Catholics but anyone yearning for justice and compassion." Leavitt takes a step, her voice sharpening. "You dare mock such a man, just hours after his death. You call him a politician in a white robe, but he did what many politicians never do. He gave real hope. You say he had no influence. Open social media, millions of Americans are praying, sharing their grief, because they saw in him a father, a guide. By mocking him, you don't just insult him, you insult the millions mourning him. That's unacceptable, not today, not ever." Leavitt pauses, her gaze locked on Bahar. "You want to talk about my faith? I'm a Catholic, and my faith teaches me to stand for truth, for justice, for the forgotten. The Trump administration, which I'm proud to serve, does exactly that. We build a strong America where workers have jobs, families have security, and everyone has a chance to rise. Trump doesn't divide, he unites those abandoned by the system, from factory workers to farmers. You may not like his style, but you can't deny his heart, a heart for the people. Leavitt raises her hand, her voice lowering but brimming with power. Pope Francis taught that we can disagree, but we must never deny the mission of compassion. You're free to disagree with him, with Trump, or with me. But when you mock a man who just passed, a man who lived to serve, you don't just fail at debate, you fail at humanity. I'm here to say that Pope Francis's legacy will live on, and I'll keep living my faith, not with words, but with action, every day, in my work for this country. The audience erupts, applause thundering, many standing, some shouting support. Leavitt stands tall, her back straight, eyes fixed on the hosts, like a warrior delivering a decisive blow. Sonny Hostin, with a forced smile, speaks up. Karoline, I didn't fully understand the Pope. You're right, he had a huge impact. Hostin's admission is a small surrender, but her eyes still betray unease. The applause surges like a breaking wave, the audience leaping to their feet, some yelling Karoline, in fervent support. A woman in the front row wipes tears, moved by Leavitt's impassioned defense of the Pope's legacy. The hosts, caught off guard by the crowd's fervor, exchange anxious glances. Whoopi, trying to pivot, raises her hand for silence. All right, that was impressive, she says, her voice strained with forced humor. Karoline, you've made your point. Now let's talk about something more practical, like Trump's tax policies, okay? Her attempt to change topics is blatant, a desperate escape from being cornered by Leavitt. Leavitt, still standing, doesn't miss a beat. Whoopi, before we talk taxes, let's remember the core, she replies, her voice calm but commanding. The compassion Pope Francis championed lives in Trump's economic vision. Cutting taxes, slashing regulations opened opportunities, putting millions into stable jobs. That's practical mercy, giving people dignity through work. Her words, sharp and deliberate, keep the narrative tied to her message, linking Trump's agenda to the Pope's call for justice. The audience erupts again, cheers drowning out. Whoopi's attempt to interrupt. Joy Behar, visibly flustered, tries to cut in. Karoline, that's a way of, but Leavitt raises her hand, her presence silencing Behar. Not a way of saying Joy. It's the truth. Trump's economy lifts up the abandoned just as the Pope urged. The crowd roars, Behar slumps back, her smirk turning to a frown. Hostin and Haynes stay silent, their initial aggression extinguished by Leavitt's dominance. Leavitt sits, her composure unshaken, while the hosts awkwardly shift topics, their authority dimmed by her resolve. As the studio drama explodes, the social media world on X ignites with instant reactions, making Leavitt's performance a focal point. Posts flood the platform, amplifying her clash with The View. A user with thousands of followers writes, Karoline Leavitt schools The View on respect, defending the Pope's legacy like a warrior. Take notes. Joy Behar. The post racks up thousands of likes, with conservatives praising Leavitt as a bold voice for faith and truth. Catholic priest shares, Leavitt's words honor the Pope's heart. She's a beacon for devout youth. Hashtags like #Karoline vises The View and #honor the Pope spread, with clips of her speech shared widely. However, liberals strike back fiercely. One progressive influencer posting Leavitt's sanctimonious act on The View is just Trump propaganda. She's too conservative to grasp the Pope's inclusive vision. The post sparks a heated debate, with some accusing Leavitt of using faith to mask Trump's divisive policies. She twists the Pope's message to fit the MAGA narrative, another user writes, echoing supporters of The View. Despite the criticism, Leavitt's supporters dominate, their posts amplifying calls for respect and drowning out dissent. The social media storm mirrors the studio's intensity, turning Leavitt's moment into a cultural flashpoint. Stepping away from the glaring studio lights, Karoline Leavitt enters a moment of stillness, her mind drifting to the profound memories that shaped her into the woman she is today. The battle just waged on live television was not merely a clash with the hosts, it was the culmination of a journey of faith and resilience, sparked by the teachings of Pope Francis. His passing just yesterday cut like a knife into her heart, but it also fueled her resolve to stand up and defend his legacy against cruel mockery. In the quiet, Leavitt lets her heart return to the moments that forged her into a young conservative warrior, a 27-year-old woman daring to challenge a media giant. As a student at St. Anselm College, Leavitt sat in her small dorm room, the desk lamp casting light on the pages of Laudato Si's, Pope Francis's encyclical on the responsibility to protect the planet. His words, calling for humanity to live with compassion and care for the vulnerable, were like a fresh breeze through her soul. He didn't just speak about the environment, but about how each person must act to bring justice. I felt like he was speaking directly to me, she recalls, her eyes lighting up at the memory of those days. It was Laudato Si's that planted the seed of her belief that faith is not just prayer, but a commitment to change the world through practical action. And especially Pope Francis's 2025 Easter homily etched itself into her mind. From the Vatican, his voice, weakened by illness, still resonated with strength, calling for peace in Gaza and a world beyond hatred. Leavitt, then in the Trump campaign office, watched the homily on a screen, feeling his courage. He taught me that faith is about engagement, even in the face of hardship, she thought, her heart pounding at his call. Those moments, from the pages of his writings to his sermons, became a guiding light for Leavitt, enabling her to stand firm on the view stage, turning mockery into an opportunity to honor the Pope's legacy. When news of Pope Francis's death spread worldwide, Leavitt knelt before a small altar in her Washington, D.C. apartment. The flickering candlelight illuminated a statue of the Virgin Mary, and she whispered a prayer, her heart heavy with grief. I felt like I'd lost a guide, she recalls, her voice trembling slightly. But in the stillness, she sensed an invisible connection through faith, as if the Pope, though gone, was still urging her to carry on his mission. I prayed for strength to defend what he believed in, she says, especially knowing the View would try to smear his legacy. That night, she posted on X, Pope Francis was a light of compassion. We must live his spirit. The simple words inspired thousands, bolstering Leavitt's resolve. As she stepped into the television battle, she emerged as a formidable strategist, confronting the liberal media with sharpness and no compromise. Her unwavering loyalty to Trump, combined with her deep Catholic faith, made her a powerful voice for young conservatives, who see her as a role model in defending traditional values against a progressive tide. After her blazing confrontation on The View, Karoline Leavitt didn't just leave the studio with a personal victory, she ignited a firestorm of debate across America. Her fight, defending Pope Francis's legacy against mockery, and affirming her loyalty to the Trump administration, transcended the television screen, becoming a focal point of media and politics. As Catholicism faced scrutiny, Leavitt's actions were not just a response to The View, but a declaration of the values she represents. From newsrooms to social media, from the White House to faith communities, her resonance continued to stir, shaping the narrative of faith and politics in a turbulent America. Within hours of the show, major media outlets dove into analyzing Leavitt's performance, each reflecting its own lens. Fox News, with undisguised enthusiasm, dedicated an evening segment to praising her. Karoline Leavitt taught The View a lesson in respect, a commentator declared, describing her as a fiery young voice, standing up for faith and truth. Their website articles dubbed her a conservative hero, highlighting how she defended Pope Francis's legacy, and tied it to Trump's values. In contrast, CNN took a critical angle, with a stinging headline, Leavitt aggressively clashes with The View, dodging substantive questions. One of their analysts called her overzealous, arguing she used faith to mask Trump's controversial policies. Yet Catholic outlets, like the National Catholic Register, viewed Leavitt through a theological lens, hailing her as an icon. She is the voice of young Catholics, unafraid to challenge secular media, an editorial wrote, praising her courage in defending the Pope against insult. These polarized reactions, from adulation to criticism, mirrored the deep divisions in American media, with Leavitt at the center of both admiration and controversy. Within the Trump administration, Leavitt was quickly hailed as a rising star. President Trump, known for his blunt tweets, posted on X, Karoline Leavitt is a star. She silenced The View and defended our faith. Proud to have her on the team. The post garnered millions of views, cementing Leavitt's image as a loyal warrior. Sebastian Gorka, a close Trump advisor, went further on his radio show, calling her a warrior of faith. Karoline didn't just defend Pope Francis, she defended America's soul against the liberal media, Gorka declared, his voice brimming with fervor. Other Trump team members, from campaign advisors to spokespeople, shared clips of Leavitt's speech, turning her into a symbol of resilience within the administration. This recognition not only elevated Leavitt's stature, but also reinforced Trump's message of standing up to the left-leaning media. The impact of Leavitt's performance extended far beyond the studio and the White House, rippling through communities and politics. As press secretary, she leveraged this attention to push messages of faith and unity, holding press briefings that highlighted Trump's policies to support workers and protect religious freedom. She appeared at Catholic events, sharing personal stories of how Pope Francis inspired her, encouraging young people to live their faith boldly. Her speeches, blending emotion with sharp reasoning, drew thousands, especially Gen Z, who saw her as a role model for navigating a polarized world. Leavitt not only bolstered the Trump administration's image, but also offered hope to those who felt their faith was under threat in modern politics. Karoline Leavitt's confrontation on The View was not just a brilliant television moment, it was a spark igniting a broader discussion about faith, politics, and identity in a divided America. Karoline turned the stage of seasoned hosts into a platform for her loyalty to President Trump and her steadfast Catholic faith. By defending Pope Francis's legacy against mockery, just hours after his death, Leavitt not only silenced The View, but sent a powerful message: faith remains a guiding torch in chaotic politics. Her performance, from her impassioned speech to the explosive media reaction, etched her name into America's cultural narrative, making her an icon for a young conservative generation ready to stand up for what is sacred. As the world still grieved Pope Francis's passing, she dared to confront insults aimed at him, transforming the stage into a defense of the compassion and justice he embodied. This act was not just a rebuttal to the liberal media, but proof that faith can be a driving force in politics. As a devout Catholic, Leavitt showed that values like dignity and responsibility, cherished by Pope Francis, can live in Trump's policies, from job creation to security. She not only defended the Pope's legacy, but also affirmed the role of young Catholics in shaping the nation's future, challenging the notion that religion has no place in modern politics. In a world where polarization overshadows dialogue, Leavitt demonstrated that faith, paired with courage, can bridge divides. Leavitt's legacy from this confrontation will resonate for years, especially among conservative Gen Z. She became a symbol for young people daring to face skeptical media, viewing faith not as a burden but as a source of strength. Her speeches, spread across social media, inspired thousands of young Catholics, encouraging them to live their faith openly and resolutely. Leavitt showed me we can be devout and strong, a college student shared on X, reflecting the sentiment of many. Catholic organizations, from schools to associations, began inviting her to speak, seeing her as a model of courage under cultural pressure. By standing up for Pope Francis, Leavitt not only defended an individual, but also sparked pride in the Catholic community, especially those who felt their faith was marginalized in the progressive tide. Her legacy is a reminder that young people can shape politics by living authentically with their values. The story of Karoline Leavitt confronting The View to defend Pope Francis's legacy deeply reflects the tensions in American life today, where political and cultural polarization often overshadows respectful dialogue. In a divided America, as depicted by the polarized reactions on X, from Fox News praise to CNN's criticism, Leavitt showed courage in standing up for her Catholic faith and loyalty to Trump, despite mockery from hosts like Joy Behar. Her actions, especially her powerful speech, not only defended the Pope, but also affirmed that faith can guide politics. Leavitt's resolve, from tying Trump's policies to the Pope's compassion to her personal story of prayer, shows a Gen Z conservative generation ready to challenge liberal media, which often views Catholicism as outdated. Karoline Leavitt's story teaches us a lesson about courage and respect in a polarized American society, where dissent easily leads to personal attacks. When Leavitt faced Joy Behar's mockery that the Pope was just a politician in a white robe, she didn't respond with anger, but with a powerful speech, highlighting the Pope's contributions during COVID-19 and peace in Gaza. This reminds us that in daily life, from workplace debates to social media, we should counter insults with truth and dignity, rather than stooping low. Leavitt's actions, like praying for strength before facing The View, show the importance of leaning on personal values, whether faith, family, or principles, to stand firm under pressure. In today's America, where X posts divide between praise and criticism, the lesson is to listen but not let negative opinions shake one's identity. Ultimately, As Leavitt tied Trump's policies to the Pope's compassion, we should seek common ground in values like justice or compassion to build bridges and communities. Take inspiration from Leavitt, live authentically, defend what's sacred, and always seek unity, even in disagreement. Subscribe to the channel to follow Karoline Leavitt's journey of defending faith and truth. Thank you for joining us, and see you in the next video.